with no warning. So good afternoon, folks. We're being recorded. I hope that works for everybody. So this afternoon, I want to check in with everybody with regard to, I'm just hiding that window. There we go. With regard to our plans for reporting. So actually today we're going to talk about the reporting expectation. This has kind of been in the works, but we've talked about all the challenges in terms of developing a reporting plan so early in the process. I also want to talk with folks about community-based organizations in their county. And then we too want to share with you the beginnings of a public-facing web page that we're developing for opioid settlement fund reporting. So of course, regional abatement is a huge amount of money. It's a huge part of that. We're starting at a very high level. We want to show you what we've done so far and have some discussion about that webpage and what it may look like. The first thing I wanted to do is to show you what the report format looks like right now, as well as talk about the reporting schedule going forward. So you're all familiar with having completed your reporting plan in FormStack. Now, there we go. Now it's going to open. And let me make sure that you can still see that, because you're not seeing it. Thought I was all fancy getting the hyperlink in there, and then it didn't work. Okay. All right. So in terms of the reporting form, this should look very familiar to you. Again, we are building off of the planned use of funds form that we had used earlier in the year. This does refer to funding amount spent, but we're going to be talking about dollars in two different ways on this form. So just for demonstration purposes, I am going to click through this. In terms of fields, again, we have required fields. We have pull down menus so that you can select your LGU name. Oops. And here's an affirmation or a check. It's not really an affirmation, but just making sure that you're selecting your correct county name. That is a long list. And then we get into the actual reporting section. So know that we are intentionally asking about the money in two ways. We're asking about what has been encumbered, and then also what has actually been spent. And so, we've talked about the challenges in tracking these dollars. And of course, this is going to go on for a number of years, so it's only going to get more fun going forward. But one of the challenges, certainly as we start off, is the fact that you've received these dollars. It takes time to plan, and it takes time to procure. And so given the amount of time the dollars have been available to you, we do not expect that there is much to report in terms of actual spending. And so Debbie Davis, jump in and help here. So when we talk about encumbered dollars versus spent dollars, we just want to be clear in terms of what we mean by that. So when we're talking about dollars that have been encumbered, so for dollars that you have identified as going towards a certain purpose. So these are dollars that may be included in a procurement, an RFA or an RFP. These are dollars that may have already been included in an executed contract. These are dollars that are clearly targeted.
Being held.
They're being held
for a future expense.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Debbie.
Yeah.
You didn't want me to keep floundering for any longer than
necessary. Well, you were giving great examples.
So held for future expense. And then when we talk about spent, we're talking about actually dollars that you've paid out against those encumbered dollars, right? So those are invoices, expense reports, those are vouchers that you've actually paid out, and the dollars are out the door, you know, and you've reimbursed the provider for that amount of money. The reason why we're teasing out the two pots is because initially we don't expect to see that there will be a lot of money spent because of the amount of money or the amount of time that goes into planning and the procurement process. But we do want to see that, you know, there's work being done with the dollars. So that's why we're asking about what's been encumbered. I do recognize that you may also have dollars that you have neither spent nor encumbered. We're not asking specifically for that because we can do the calculation, right? So we know how much money you were given out of the 2023 allotment. If you tell us how much is encumbered and how much has been spent, we can do the math, and we'll know if there are outstanding dollars that you haven't planned for yet. So, and if folks could put their phone on mute, I'd really appreciate it until we're ready for the Q&A period. That would be great. Thanks. So we are going to ask you about encumbered and spent dollars across the 10 priority areas that we've talked about, that have been identified, that follow the board's recommendations. Within each of these fields, we do ask that if you have neither encumbered or spent dollars, that you put a 0 in the field as opposed to just leaving it blank. A blank is not the same thing as a 0. So in order to ensure that we have the most clean data collection, we're asking you to put a 0 if there is no amount for that particular category. And we're asking you to report out on dollars through June 30th. So again, recognizing that this may be filled with zeros, we get it, I get it, we understand. And you may not have you may not have had a lot of activity up through June 30th. Whatever the activity has been through June 30th, we ask that you report on that. We specify June 30th, knowing that if dollars had been encumbered and potentially spent, that sometimes it takes a couple of months to get that reporting and to reconcile that. We picked that date hoping to make it, you know, a little easier for everybody, rather than saying, like, you know, report out to, you know, July 31st. So we're going to ask you to report through July 30th, and this fourth bullet that you see under the notes section, know that as we go from year to year, we recognize that there's a likelihood that there will be unspent dollars. So unspent dollars from 2023 that will carry over and be included in your work for 2024. So know that as those dollars carry over, we expect that the 2024 report is going to include information on those carryover dollars as well as your 2024 appropriations. Any questions so far, or any comments from folks so far? Hopefully that's making sense.
Connie, this is Brian. I was just typing up a question, but I'll ask it openly on the mic. So in Chemung County, we accept quarter or monthly invoices from providers and reconcile at the end of the year if they didn't have actuals to that amount. How would you see that being reported in this on a, you know, however often you're giving us this report to fill out?
So that is a good question. And Debbie, feel free to help me here. So you're saying that, so regardless of whether they've spent or not, they still need to submit a report?
No. So let me just use real numbers. So let's say we're giving $100,000, $120,000. So they bill us every month for $10,000. At the end of the year, they actually spent $85,000. We reconcile that, they give back the excess.
So
But
Brian,
this,
let me
it would
just
show
ask you,
spent.
did you advance them money, or they're just billing at the 10,000 because that's the agreed amount? And then when you pay that 10,000, you keep paying it. And then at the end, they true up with their actual costs. I'm just trying to understand, did you advance? Okay. So
Yeah.
you pay them monthly 10,000 because they give you a voucher for 10,000.
Correct.
But then at the end of the year, they let you know what they actually spent.
Yep. And if we need to, we pull back money if we over paid them because we don't base the invoices on actuals. We base it on what, for example, what the state aid letter has said traditionally.
So you're basing it on that you have a process that requires vouchers, but you're being true to the state aid amount that they're supposed to be sent.
Correct.
Oh,
Okay.
so
All right. So I mean, I would think that at the time of this report, you can only be true to what you've paid out, not what you've trued up. The next year will capture any adjustments that happen.
So Brian, know that we are gonna, and I was gonna do the reporting timeline second. Maybe I should have done it first. So let me see if this might help folks a little bit. Hang on.
But also, Brian, I would say these funds, right, you've received up front. So they're not necessarily part of the state aid process, right? Because we're not advancing you funds.
Right. No,
We're
I'm just
you're gonna
explaining
keep
what
it.
our normal process is. We're not going to have a different payment process because of the way the funding source is coming in. This is what our contract states. If by contract you're getting 120,000, you're allowed to bill us, an equal amount, based on monthly or quarterly, whichever you choose, and then we reconcile at the end.
So I think that you'll have opportunity, Brian. So if you look at this timetable that I put up, this will only be an issue for this report, for the reporting that's going to be due in August, because we are going to get the reporting in sync with your fiscal year. So we're going to ask you to report going forward after this initial report. We're going to ask you to report out on the calendar year, which I believe is also your fiscal year. So come March 30th, 2024, you see listed under LGU OLE report due, March 30th, 2024, you're reporting out on your expenses through December of 2023. So you will have so whatever the ultimate reconciliation is with that provider, you will be reporting out on actuals. Does that make sense?
Yes, thanks.
Okay. And since I jumped over here, I just wanted to show folks, I tried to talk about this last time, but I think having a visual is helpful. So in the left-hand column is where I listed what the LGU and OLE report due dates are as we go forward. And also what spending period that report reflects. And then the funding year we're talking about, and then how that information will be used to inform our annual report that we need to do by November 1st. So if you see on that first row, we're going to ask that you complete your report that reflects dollars through used, encumbered, and spent through June 30th of 2023 of this year. In terms of the funding year we're talking about, again, fiscal year 2023 dollars that were provided to you. And we're going to use that information to inform our November 1st, 2023 report. Again, we want to get in sync with your fiscal cycle. So what we're going to do is starting in the spring, so March 30th, 2024, we're going to ask you to submit your next report. That report is going to cover your encumbrance and spending through December 2023. So that report that you submit should actually reflect all of your spending and encumbrance for 2023. So it will include anything that you may have reported in the report that we're asking you to submit this summer. That report that you provide in March of 2024 that reflects your 2023 spending is going to include dollars that were carried over from 2023 and your 2024 appropriations. And I'm going to jump back for a second. You know that we're within the settlement and within the agreements and the law, actually, it says that we need to get reporting from you, and we need to have a plan for how we're going to get information from you, and also what will satisfy our requirements so that we can issue you your next payment, right? And so really, this report that we're asking for you to provide in August is going to satisfy the requirement for us, for OASAS, to then be able to send you your 2024 appropriations. So we just recently got information from DOB in terms of that amount, and we are getting ready to be able to issue those dollars to you. But we need to get something from you to say, okay, we're in this, and we've heard from you. Now we're ready to release the 2024 dollars. So again, I recognize that this report in August is going to have a minimal amount of information because we're not really very far into this process, but it does serve the purpose of our having documentation that we then can look to say, now we can issue the 2024 dollars. When and part of the point here too is to show you that as you carry over dollars, those will be that amount will be included in what you report out on in the next given year. So I know somebody has their hand up. I can't see folks, but so I'll get to hands up in a second. And Tammy, to be clear on reporting, you're asking for reporting through June 30th. You'll want monthly after that, so July 30. So no, so we're not asking for monthly reporting. We are trying to move to an annual reporting cycle. So you will only be reporting out for your the previous calendar year. So again, we want to get into a cycle so that your reporting is in sync with your fiscal year, and you're only providing that annual report. So you're only reporting to us once a year. So hopefully that helps, Tammy. It's not monthly. And I can't, let me see if I can try to see hands up. Lucia, can you call on folks?
Yeah, it's Dave Spadone. He unmuted himself. Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, sorry, I was a little early there. You probably know this already. I just wanted to point out the typo in the second column there under spending period, so you could fix it before the date at the bottom there is.
Yeah, it should be 25
Oh,
on the
right.
bottom.
Yep, I see that. Thank you.
Also, I guess I was just curious. So the first report is due in August. I see like you have 90 days after every other period, but I mean, everyone's obviously aware our budgets are due for 24, like in August, typically in the middle of August. So I was just wondering where this date of 8/18 came from. And I mean, is that an official date yet, or doesn't give us a lot of time once we have a compressed budget schedule this year, actually. It's usually due the 15th. It's due a few days before that. And 8/18 makes it really tight. I realize there'd be a lot of zeros, but I just was curious if that was a final date yet, or if you were just thinking about that date.
So I'm always willing to talk about what works best for folks. I'll tell you that the actual date that is expected is August 1st. That's what's written into the law and so on, in the reporting and so on and so forth. So I was hoping to give folks some additional time because it's the 21st and the 8th isn't so far away. But if this group is saying that because of other other requirements, other obligations, something like September 1st would be more doable, I'm listening. Does that make more sense to the group?
Well, I can't speak for anybody else. That would be great for Erie, but a lot of people on this call. But thank you for considering that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so others, I know folks are, oh, Brian's clapping his hands, so I think, he thinks September 1 sounds better. Why don't, I think that let's tentatively say, September 1st right now. And again, too, for folks to be aware, right? So we need to have our report ready by November 1st. And so, two, we're trying to compile information, but I don't want to back folks up either. So, I mean, we can move this to November 1st if that's what works best.
September, Connie.
What did I just say? December?
November.
Oh my
You
gosh.
said no. So Sean Mary had his hand up.
Thank you. And I apologize if I'm jumping ahead. I don't know if you're going to talk about this, but are the other litigating entities within our LGU also going to be doing this, or is the LGU, going to be taking over for those cities?
That is a great question, Sean. And so I know that we did ask, did we have you guys in the money? I can't even remember anymore, but you are not responsible for collecting the reporting from the OLE. So we actually are going to send the link to the FormStack report to all of our contacts. So we have contact information for all of the OLEs and the 5 cities. So we're going to send the reporting to them directly, and we will manage getting that information from them directly. You are not responsible for that as the LGU.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, not the OLEs are the only category where we don't have everybody's plans. So only those OLEs who submitted a plan will receive reporting link information, because it's a stepwise function, right? So you're not gonna, because as Connie said just before, this submission of your report frees up your $24. If an OLE hasn't even received their $23, this part of the process is not available to them yet.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes
So
sense.
for the purposes of you as an LGU, you're not responsible for the OLE's reporting, only your
Okay.
own.
Okay, that makes sense. If you, let's say, I mean, as the LGU, I should know if they're doing the reporting, because they should keep us in the loop as well. But if they're not doing that, will you guys let us know if that's becoming a problem so we can help out in pushing them to do the reporting?
Yeah, we definitely will. And I appreciate you even bringing that up. And, you know, one of the things when we were looking at the calendar and thinking about when to have the report due, so that spring report for the previous year, you know, we kind of assume that there'll be some folks who don't make the deadline, and then we'll need to follow up, and, you know, it'll take us a couple months to probably get reporting from everyone so that, you know, we have our full complement of information. So we absolutely, if you are offering to help us, we will absolutely share the information on what's outstanding as we go through the process. And if you could help us, that'd be great.
And I just want to reiterate something that Connie said earlier. You know, obviously we're meeting a statutory requirement to have reporting. Plus, it is in everyone's interest of how things are going with the opioid settlement fund. So regardless of statute, we would have wanted to collect this information. But initially, you all had to submit a plan on, you know, how you projected to use the funds. But going forward, as Connie was saying, as long as you submit your report, that then makes you eligible to get your next allocation of the local subdivision funding that gets included in each enacted budget, right? So for the enacted budget fiscal year we're in right now, which is the 2023 to 2024, which we call fiscal year 2024, that allocation to you all, we won't be able to send it until you know, fill in your report. That's considered your next plan. And that would trigger your eligibility to receive your funds, your next amount of funding.
Debbie, while you're on, there's a question. Folks are asking for clarification on carryover. Do you want to provide that?
Sure. So in the terms that, in the way they're being used for this chart that Connie had put up, I believe what you know, she's trying to share with you is that right now, to meet what is showing up as an August 18th report due, right? we're anticipating that there'll be minimal encumbrances and even more minimal amount of spending, but it's meeting a requirement, right? So you're going to report that. That means a lot of your fiscal year 2023 funds are, just waiting to be planned, right? So we're saying that now we're going to shift the time frame as to when you should be doing these reports, which means you're kind of doing two in the year of 2020, or not in the year 2023, but two on the funds from 2023. So in March, you're going to report on your all your spending, all of your uses through the end of, through 12/30/2023. So we're anticipating that some of that money that you didn't use and didn't report on in the first report, that's carryover. That is your amounts that weren't planned, weren't encumbered, weren't spent, and you're going to report on all of that in the next report. So that's your fiscal year 2023 carryover. We also anticipate that you will report on your new allocated funds from fiscal year 2024, because by filling in the report, for August, you're now eligible to get your allocation for 2024.
So Connie, Mark has his hand up.
Mark?
Oh, Brian.
Thanks, Connie. Am I coming through okay?
You are.
Okay, couple quick questions. Okay, thank you. So the reporting through the LGU are all parts of that award, whether that go to the county, out of the OASAS award that goes to the county. And as you mentioned in an earlier call, there will be parts that the LGU doesn't touch at all. So, for example, it goes up through the county administration, down through the health department or whatever like this. No matter what department it comes through, we are reporting on that. So it's just an internal collection mechanism. Am I correct on that?
Love the question, Mark. And we had jumped out of the report. So I think everyone is aware
If you're
that
talking, I can't hear you.
Oh no. Can you hear me, Lou?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, I think it's just Mark. I am talking, Mark. Can you hear me now?
I couldn't. You just came on. You were
Oh, okay.
muted. I couldn't hear what you said here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
Now, I can hear you now. I'm sorry.
okay. So, as we've been talking about, OASAS is responsible for
Okay, I can hear you now.
Oh, so he can't really hear me now because,
Yes.
Oh, you sure? Okay, so OASAS is responsible for reporting out on all of the opioid settlement funds. And our interpretation of that means that includes the dollars that were provided through the Attorney General's office. And I think that's where Mark was going.
I've got you. You're coming through.
Okay, great. And so actually in our reporting form, and I jumped out of there early to show you the timetable, and we can go back to the report. We will go back to the reporting form, but we have one page that corresponds to the dollars that OASAS made available directly to the LGUs. There's also a second page that refers to the dollars made available through the Attorney General's office. It is the same format, same questions, and I will say to everyone, we are trying to meet a reporting requirement, recognizing that one, OASAS does not have official reporting out from the Attorney General's office in terms of how much money was sent to each county. And we also know that it was sent to your treasurer's office or county executive. It wasn't sent to you as the LGU. So you may have limited information about those Attorney General dollars, or those dollars made available through the Attorney General. We are asking for those of you who may have information about those dollars that you report out on what you can. And then for others where you are not in the loop, you haven't been told or shared, information hasn't been shared with you, that you can let us know that you haven't been included in that reporting and you don't have information. So we do want to make an effort to try to get information about those dollars. We hope that we get greater clarity going forward, and we may be able to hone in on who would have that information, if not you. But we have two separate tables to collect that information.
Yep, and I'm going to add another clarifying statement to that too,
Sure.
Connie, which is some municipalities, local subdivisions that received payment through the AG's third-party administrator, some of them received funding that was
Okay, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep, some was labeled restitution monies and some was labeled remediation monies. Our attempt to collect information is on the remediation money.
Just to complicate things as much as possible.
So Connie, there's two more questions. Alicia put a question in the chat, which Debbie, if you want, you can speak to. Will the next allocation be the same? Or are you saying it will be affected by what is reported from fiscal year 2023?
That's exactly what I was going to ask next.
Excellent. So then that means it was on other people's minds, and it's a great question. So the allocation that comes each fiscal year is only impacted by the settlement agreements themselves. They specify the amounts to the local subdivisions and the amounts to the regional share. So it is not, the amount that would be coming to you is not related to, to whether you report it or not. That amount is set in statute. However, what is related to you filling out your reports, each year annually, is your ability to be eligible for OASAS to send you the funding, right? Because if you're not meeting the obligation to report out to us, then we cannot send you the next year's allocation. That's the catch.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of the amount for 2024, so the appropriations, the amount is going to change from year to year. And that's based on money made available through the different settlement agreements. So you can't assume if you received $550,000 in 2023, you can't assume you're going to get $550,000 in 2024. So that information is going to be made available to us. It's based on the state budget, and our DOB will provide us with information in terms of the amount that's available in the regional abatement. And as we had said, last spring, we are using a formula to determine how much of each region's allotment a county will get. So we had said we would use that formula for a few years. We will revisit it periodically. And two, once we receive your report that we're talking about most immediately, receiving that report from you by September 1st, that's going to trigger your eligibility for your 2024 dollars, and you will be receiving information the same way as we did last year. So I believe we sent out a letter that said this is how much money you're getting and it'll say through the 2024 appropriations, and that will be your notification of the amount you're getting for the next, for this year. So I hope that I think that question was also in the chat. So
yeah. So Connie, Nicole has her hand up.
Nicole.
Hi, Connie. Back to the question around the carryover. So maybe it's for Debbie, but so if we get the 2020 fiscal year 2024 allocation, say this fall sometime, and the report that was second one in your in the table listed in the table was for spending through 12/30 of 2023, and the report would be for any carryover plus fiscal year 2024.
Right.
So that, I'm assuming then that means you can begin spending that 2024 allocation prior to December 30th of 20.
Oh, absolutely. As soon as you receive the money, you can start spending it.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Let's see, to the county in 20, let's see here. So Brian, and maybe Debbie, you can assist with this, or if our counsel's office is on. So Brian is pointing out that reporting on the AG funds that came to the treasurer's office with regard to that, he was under the impression that some of that started coming to the county in 2022. So that might affect the reporting periods. So I think that we would ask you, and actually let me turn to my colleagues in terms of those AG dollars. I don't know if they're going out based on, well, it'd be based on the state appropriations. Could we ask the county to also think about and report out based on their calendar year?
So they're not based in appropriations because they didn't come through the state. They were made from a third party, right? A third party administrator. So I think what's being asked is that some of the municipalities received funding in 2022 through the AG's third party. And so I think they're asking about, in the report form, you know, would they report it as their fiscal year 2022 spending? You know, would they do it by year with carryover? And I think that's something that we need to think about, because I don't think we thought about that they received funding in 2022. So probably our report isn't set up to capture the 2022 kind of idea.
So they would have dollars for the past 2 years.
Yeah.
Which really, I mean, which also is true of the 23, right? It actually reflects 2 spending years or 2 fiscal years.
Well, that's true too. That's a good
Yeah.
point on the state side. So yeah.
Yeah. So I think that, I mean, you know, you guys, we're going to do the best we can as we go through this process. And I do think there'll be some amount of kind of figuring things out as we go along. So I would say that you would include in your reporting on the AG dollars, it would include both 22 and 23 dollars that you've received. And we're going to assume that, like with the regional abatement, which includes the 2022 and 2023 dollars, that this is kind of a catch-up year. You know, both years are going to be included, so that, you know, we can kind of stay in sync and do the same thing on both sides. Let's see here.
Yeah, so the next question in the chat is about if we complete the required reporting, can we assume that we're going to receive the amounts listed on the spreadsheet from the OSF report you gave to be passed through to the LGU, or did you say it has to be approved each year by year? If you want to address that, Connie or Debbie.
Yeah, so we do need to look at it year by year. Part of the reason is because the amount of money that is coming in, you know, included in the report were is prospective the right word, but dollars that we anticipated, right, to the best of our ability, figuring out what was going to be made available. And, you know, additional settlements have been finalized even since we started this process. So that's impacting the amount of dollars. And so we really do need to look at each year as it comes in terms of the amount of money, like the exact amount of money that you're going to get. I think that what was included in those tables was like our best determination based on the amount of information that was available at the time. And it is really through, you know, each fiscal year's appropriations that we'll be doing our calculations. And 2, you know, we do have that formula, and to the extent that the formula is going to affect the calculation, I don't anticipate in just a couple of years there would be much impact. But 2, you know, we will talk about what is the best formula to use, you know, in future years and so on. So I'd say wait for that award letter. Debbie, do you agree with that?
If I could just ask, so because we're trying to plan our money and make something sustainable, right? That's going to be not year to year, right? So
Mhm.
we're just trying to figure out, like, is there a minimum? Are we definitely going to get funding? Like, I understand it could be more, but when we start a program, we want to make sure, like, where we're getting the funding from, because like you said, we have so many streams, and I have this crazy spreadsheet where I'm trying to figure everything out. And if we could figure out that it's somewhere around there, like a minimum or whatever, then that would help us plan.
So, and I appreciate that, Janet. And I have Steve Giordano's voice in my head right now, because one of the things he had said at one of our first meetings when we as a group were talking about this, he was pointing out the fact that there will be a cliff. So come 2025, there will be a drop in the amount of money that's available. So, and I appreciate the want to plan, right? So that you can, put in, create programming that you can sustain over time. I think that that table that includes the multiple years is a good guide. And I think it gives you an idea of about how much you could get, although not an exact amount. Debbie, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would say, each fiscal year it's going to be updated, right? So the new charts that we've received from the Division of Budget, which we will make available, does show the projection out, across the next 15 years or so. And it is based, just to repeat, I know Connie said this, but it is based on the settlements that have happened now. It is understanding that settlements had the opportunity to say they were going to pay in a lump sum or make payments over a certain amount of time. And even saying over a certain amount of time, some of those payments over time would start 5 years from now. So it really takes everything that we know today, knowing that there's still some outstanding settlements. So it takes what we know today, and they'll show you to the best of our ability of what the amounts are, right? That's probably the best any of us can do. The settlements do go down, because as Connie had also said, our fund did not get established in law until the 2023 enacted budget, which was just last year. So revenues had come in. So there was like 2 years of revenues, projected. They might not have all been in, but 2 years of revenue were projected to come in that started coming into the fund in 2023. So at first there's a lot, but it does go down a little bit. So it is something to take a look at. The other piece to that is that the regional share is established, in the settlement agreements in themselves, and they're based on the economic development regions. And so we, as you know, Connie, we've developed this partnership with the LGUs to say, we thought boots on the ground, all your local planning, who better than the LGUs to be able to understand what is needed in the regions as they break out into the LGUs. So the regional amount is established, and then we take a formula and allocate that to the LGUs that make up that region. So you won't have that, but you could take a look at, the actual regional share and take a look at what you got out of that regional share and kind of percentage that out to give you an idea, right? That's the best any of us can do, because, going out so many years past 1 or 2 is going to be sort of an estimate.
Great, thank you.
So the next question in the chat is, it's from this 37A298. So I don't know who that is in terms of if you have information, because there's a little 2 parts to your question, but it says the finance department of the county also has to report out the AG funding to someone, maybe the AG ? So I guess what I'm wondering is, do you know your first statement to be a true sentence, or is that all one question? Whoever that is, if you unmute.
Yeah, it's Mike Piazza. It's Putnam County.
Okay.
The first part of the question is true, that there is a report made by it will be the finance department. I'm just confirming with them now that it's to actually to the AG. I didn't want to say it's to the Attorney General's office if it was Division of Budget. but it's to it is to some different entity other than this, in the state.
So your finance department of your county is sharing with you that they are putting together a report that they're sending to an entity that the AG told them to, for both their remediation and restitution funding that they received?
Just for the AG settlement part, not for the abatement funds.
No, understood, but even within the AG's funds, they sent out two different pots. One was restitution and one was remediation. And I'm just asking, I don't know which funds your finance department received. And I'm just making sure that the AG is asking you to report on both.
I could jump in here quick. I think what you're referring to is the AG sent out reporting requirements for funds not used for remediation, and those go to Brown Greer.
That's exactly what I'm getting, right? It's
Okay,
restitution.
yeah, sorry to cut you off, Debbie.
No, it's okay. No, Greg, that's it. That's exactly what I said earlier. Restitution funding gets reported to the AG. Restitution spending.
I just wanted to share that they're already responding to some state agency. I'll confirm if it's both the restitution as well as the remediation.
Mhm. But I mean, I appreciate the conversation, because I think it just goes to show that there are many moving parts here, and trying to get in sync is challenging when you're talking about so many dollars, so many entities involved in it. So I appreciate everybody's willingness to kind of hang in with us and figure out how to get all of this done. So another question, I don't know if there's any hands up. I don't want to be ignoring hands. So if you could check on that, Lucia.
Yeah, no, just the one in the chat.
Okay. Question about if we do advance payments to subrecipients, but also collect quarterly cost reports, would you rather us report the spend based on the actuals reported in the cost report for the 630 report, or still report out on what's been paid? I think if you have actuals, I'd always prefer actuals over what's been paid out. So I would say actuals in response to that question. I do want to check in with folks. It is 2:52, so we only have 8 minutes left. We were looking at the actual report form. I just want to bring that up. And two, even us at OASAS, we're kind of talking to each other behind the scenes here, trying to, answer questions and figure through, because it is so complicated. So as I said, we're going to ask you if you're aware of how the AG dollars are being spent, and we recognize that, we are still seeking further clarification with regard to those AG dollars and who reports where. We intentionally included the AG dollars in our reporting because our read is that we are responsible for collecting that information. So it's kind of like, if we ask for it and we're expected to collect it, we're covered. And if we ask for it and we're not expected to report on it, we're still covered. So we're just trying to make sure we're covering all of our bases and all the possibilities here. You'll see that the format is the same as what you saw for the regional abatement passed through OASAS. So we're asking about encumbered versus spent. Based on those 10 priority areas, recognizing that you may have a limited amount of information to report to us here. And I think too, as we learn as we go, this reporting in particular, in terms of the AG dollars may change, maybe it'll go away, who knows? But we're going to have to figure that out as we go along. There is an attestation section that's included in your report. To acknowledge the fact that you are using these dollars for the purposes, the allowable use of funds as outlined in the settlement agreement, and that you're also using these dollars to supplement, not supplant, existing funding. And two, we have included, a date and a signature box for you. I know that there were conversations and questions about who can attest, who can report. And with regard to that, we recognize that in completing this report, you may be collecting information from multiple other people in order to have the accurate information to include here. In terms of the attestation, we do want to make sure that and Lucia, maybe you can you and Greg can cover this, because you two worked out the language in terms of who is attesting and who is acceptable to attest.
Right. So the executive, the LGU person, I mean, mainly all you folks are LGU folks, so it should be the executive from there. We do a lot of corresponding with accountants, lawyers, people in different aspects of your office who generally are helping provide the information, like Connie said. But when it comes to signing this part, it really should be the person we know to be the LGU representative.
Mm-hmm.
Director of Community Services. That's what Andrew said. Yep, is in the title for LGUs. And then for cities, it's the mayor. For OLEs, their executive.
And if you do have a documented designee, we do need to have a signed letter from the executive stating that this person is the designee. Greg, is there anything else that we need to mention here, or anything that we're not covering with regard to the attestation? Or Debbie Davis, if you want to add anything?
Nothing from my lens. Appreciate it though.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just say that the attestation is meant to, make sure that you are signing and understanding that you can't supplant state, federal, or county dollars, and that also you need to retain your documentation for the next 10 years past your last payment in using the funds. So I don't see I don't know. There's language about that too.
Yeah, we need to make sure that's in here, because I'm not seeing it either, Debbie, but
Yeah.
we'll make sure that's complete.
And,
Could you restate that? 10 years past the last payment received, or last payment out the door on our end?
I don't know. I sent the language. Give me one
You
second.
did, Debbie. So that's on me for not getting that included here.
It's the same language that was actually in your planned use of funds document, but I'll pull that up real quick and I'll find it in 2 seconds.
So while Debbie's pulling that up, the other thing that we wanted to talk about is the dashboard, or not dashboard, the web page. So or we're required, I should say, to provide information through some type of, they describe it as a dashboard, but some kind of reporting mechanism that's public facing with regard to the use of the OSF dollars. And so in the spirit of making information available, we have started to put it together some information that we could post to the web page with regard to the regional abatement. I'm starting to talk fast because it's 2:59. I will ask Andrew Heck if he could please share his screen and just show, because I'd like for you guys to get eyes on what our initial thoughts are in terms of what information we could share. And I recognize that right now, there's limited information, but over time, I expect that there's more and more that we would be able to report out on and share. And to the extent that we can build reports and we can make information available in a way that's useful to counties as well, or to satisfy your reporting requirements, we would like to do that. So Andrew has put up on his screen. Actually, Andrew, do you want to talk about this?
Sure. I mean, it's really the basic information. So it's and we've only really mocked up the capital region, and with the sort of caveat that this is subject to change, both from sort of internal and just from a technology standpoint of this is truly like based on a Word document that we're just throwing together right now. So essentially what we wanted to display was sort of the very basic information. So the counties in the region, because it's not always obvious, especially to members of the public when we talk about Capital Region or Western New York, what counties that includes. So the counties in the region, the funds made available. Right now we have it down to the dollar amount. This may end up being in thousands or in millions, but just the idea of the funds made available, and then the sort of cumulative allocation from the region. So right now we're not necessarily intending to show that on the county level, just the cumulative sort of spending for the region. And so that's really where we're going. So you imagine, this is the Capital Region. You imagine this for all the 7 other regions as well. So that's our thinking at this point.
Okay, so, and I do like, the idea that we could also link to like your county website, so we could make information available and also direct people back to your county, on our webpage. So I thought that was kind of cool. As Andrew said, right now, I mean, it's very high level, and it's based on those regional amounts, but indicating how much is made available to each of the counties. Again, that's based on formula. We also have, as if Andrew would scroll down, you see that, one thought was just to display how much money counties had planned to use in each of those 10 areas. So I realized with this, for this year, right? I mean, we're talking about, we asked you to give us information on how you thought you would spend the money, recognizing that there was still much planning to do and much discussion to be had before you would know for sure how you were going to use the dollars. So I am interested to hear from folks if you feel like this information, you'd rather it not be put up, that you feel like it may reflect very differently when it comes to the actual reporting, and your thoughts along those lines. I mean, we could, we would make clear that this is just what the proposed plan was, right? It doesn't necessarily reflect what's actual. But this is along the lines of what we were thinking. So I am interested, it's 3:02. I could keep you guys on the phone probably for another hour around this stuff, but I don't want to do that. But it gives you a quick idea as to what we're thinking. I know that there's still a couple of questions that are in the chat. I don't think we were able to answer all of them. Know that we will save the chat questions and make sure if there are any that we haven't responded to, that we do so. We follow up and let you guys know what those answers are. I will also say, and I keep doing this. So one thing I want to just get back to quickly. According to statute, we are required to get reporting from you by August 1st. It's very clear, it's written into statute. That's when we need to get reporting from you by. I recognize that we could say August 1st, and you may well not be able to reply by August 1st. And I understand that September 1st is more reasonable. I just want to say that after I confer with my colleagues, we may well say to you that the reporting is due by August 1st. I will also add that I realize that that might not be doable. And I ask that we may ask that you do your best by August 1st and recognize that you may well not report by August 1st. So I guess I'll just leave it at that. I'll leave it at that, right? So we can say that we've met the statute by asking you to report by August 1st, and recognize that that might not, be realistic for everyone. So I will say it, I'm learning to be a better and better bureaucrat every day. So
Can I add something? Connie?
Sure.
So I will say that because Connie's built in, to shift this reporting, which will also meet an August 1st timeframe for sure, because it's going to get it way earlier and it's going
Right.
to shift it towards your
Right.
calendar. That if we have some discomfort with the first time, that, you know, we just all do the best we can, but that everything will be captured in that next report. So you know, if that helps in any way. And I did want to say that I put the language in the chat related to receiving entities must retain financial records that can show supplementation and not supplantation of SUD funds and total program spending for a minimum of 10 years after the last payment is made for a given fiscal reporting period or contract.
And so
Oh,
I'm sorry, we'll make sure that that language gets in there. One thing, there was a question that came up about admin. And so just want to clarify to folks too, there is an admin amount that counties are able to account for in the amount that's provided to them. There was a question about subcontracts. So if a county does a procurement and a provider or an applicant includes admin costs, those admin costs are part of the amount made available in the procurement, as I understand it. We don't expect that the admin costs included in a sub-recipient's budget are taken out of the county's admin dollars. Debbie, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I believe that that was asked a little bit earlier on, a bit ago, and that answer is consistent. We basically said you should follow your normal procurement rules around that. But for us, we're giving you admin to administer this funding. And then when you develop procurements, whatever admin amount rate that you normally go with, that's what, you know, that's your consideration for what you're making that money available. And no, it doesn't, you know, it doesn't count as part of your admin.
There's a question about ability to give advance payments. I believe that answer is yes. And in terms of when you're going to get the reporting link, we are going to get it out to you Monday, and it will be ready to go for you to complete by August 1st. Oh, I was going to say wink, wink, but this is being recorded. So by August 1st, and again, we ask everybody to do their best. And we will get that. Lucia is going to promise us that link is going to go out on Monday for the reporting. As always, you guys, please feel free to reach out to me directly, Debbie Davis, if needed. You also have the Opioid Settlement Fund Project Management mailbox that you can send questions to. Debbie just shook her head. We can't send to you directly, Debbie. I'm teasing.
Sorry, not on what you were saying. Sorry.
So we're here. We appreciate your efforts. Thanks for joining us on another Friday afternoon in the summer. And we'll talk to you guys really soon. Take care, everybody.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.